What if building a thriving business wasn't about strategy and growth, but about happiness? Not just for customers, but employees, partners, and the entire ecosystem that fuels success. Today's guest doesn't just believe in that idea, she's built an entire company around it. Hello, and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and this is the show where we dig into the journeys of the people shaping the world of manufacturing. Not their companies and solutions, but their stories, their lessons, and their experiences that got them here today. Before we jump in, make sure you check us out at themfgconnector.com and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to stay connected with all of the content and stuff that we put out. If you're looking for even more great content, don't miss our other shows. Work But Make It Human, where we dive into leadership. Work But Make It Human, where we dive into leadership and workplace culture, and the Manufacturing Connector on YouTube, which is the show all about the solutions that make life easier for your employees. If you're searching for answers to big manufacturing challenges, that's a show for you. Now, let's talk about today's guest, someone who knows a thing or two about business, branding, and building a culture where people actually want to come to work. Janelle McGrath is the CEO of MarketVeep, a powerhouse marketing and sales agencies that's racked up some serious accolades. We're talking HubSpot Diamond Partner, Inc. Best Workplaces winner, a two-time Inc. 5000 fastest growing company, and an SBA certified woman-owned small business. Not to mention, they've taken home the Netty Award for Boutique Agency of the Year and Most Innovative Web Design. But here's the thing, Jennelle isn't just about growth for the sake of it. She's built MarketVeep with a core focus on people-first leadership, workplace happiness, and creating a culture where success and well-being go hand in hand. She even hosts her own podcast, Finding Business Happy, where she explores what it really takes to build a company that thrives and makes people happy. So today, we're going to hear Janelle's story, how she got started, the lessons she's learned along the way, and what manufacturing leaders can take from her approach to building strong, connected, and high-performing teams. Get ready for a conversation that is sure to be inspiring. Janelle McGrath is here. Janelle McGrath, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Awesome intro. So excited to be here. Can't wait to geek out about culture.
Absolutely. I love it when I have guests on that are equally as passionate about this stuff as I am. And Jennelle, I knew from the moment we had our first intro call that this was going to be a lot of fun. We have similar energy, but the passion that we have for culture and leadership and healthy workplaces, happy workplaces, it's what we're all about. So we're going to have a lot
Kindred
to talk
spirits.
about. Absolutely. And you take it a step further with your well-being aspect. And we'll dive into that because you told me something before we jumped in about what the first Friday of every month looks like for you and your team. And I'm super excited about that. But to start off, I want to talk with you, as I ask all of my guests, what does culture mean to you?
So culture to me means happiness. So I think a lot of times company culture, I think about when I talk to people, they'll say, well, Google, they have bikes that you can ride around campus and I can get lunch. The company pays for my lunch every Friday, or they have a caterer come in. That's stuffing things, in my opinion. It's not the feeling that you can have or the happiness of other parts of your life that it can impact. And so I think it all boils down to, are you happy? And yes or no, and then figure out the next step from there.
I love that take on it. And you are the first guest who has brought happiness into their definition of what culture is. And I haven't been asking this question for all of my guests, but all of the guests that I have asked, haven't said it out loud, but happiness has been part of their definition as well.
Mm,
They just haven't verbalized that, if that makes any sense at all.
yeah,
So I
for
love
sure.
that that is the main point to your definition of what culture is. It's all about that happiness because we, I think we've all been in jobs where Sunday night we start getting those
Mm,
Sunday scaries about going to work the next day, right?
for sure.
And that means that you're not truly happy with your
Hmm.
situation. And on the flip side, a lot of people do think pizza parties and bikes and ping pong tables or foosball tables defines the culture, and they couldn't be further from the
Yeah.
truth.
It's shifted too, to your point too, right? Like all the physical stuff that it used to be before COVID, where you
Yeah,
could say, well, like we can check this box. We have company culture because we do foosball in the office, or, everybody, we bring in a birthday cake. Uh, what do you do when you're fully remote at this point?
right.
How do you keep all of that alive?
Absolutely. And it's a challenge for manufacturers because I don't know one shop that I do know one shop that has a foosball table in their break room, right? But I've been in thousands of shops in over the course of my career. That's not something that they necessarily want their employees doing, right?
Mm,
And to me, all companies have a culture. It's just you have the culture that you want to have, right? And so
yeah,
when you're an essential employee, you have to be on site. Uh, it really does boil down to your definition to that happiness, right? And so
mm-hmm.
that's why I love it. I love that answer.
Okay, thank you. What do you think is the most common thing that you hear?
um, so generally, it comes down to from my guess, recognition, appreciation, some of
Hmm.
the soft skills that you talk about, that I talk about, um, but never a mindset, right? It's always a skill,
Hmm.
and not that that's good or bad.
Yeah,
Um, and that may reflect the fact that I have people on who have good cultures in their
yeah.
companies, right? I've never had a guest on and then the next day had uh, an employee reach out to me and say, I can't believe you had that person on. Our culture's horrible, right? Which was a fear early on in this show, is that I would start getting hate mail. Um, so I may just have people on who have the cultures that they desire and that their people want.
Yeah,
My definition of culture is you have the culture you want when your organizational values align with the values of the employees that you have, which I just think
I
is a
love that.
different way of saying happiness, right?
Yeah,
Because when you walk in the door as an employee, if you know that your values align with the organizational values, you are going to be happy, right? You're
agreed.
going to work with purpose because the passion is there in your day to day.
100%. I think
Yeah,
even the value alignment changes the entire shift of the feeling you get. Like
absolutely.
the kind of the purposeful work that you do, but the feeling of no more Sunday scaries.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. 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 Janelle, I could talk just about culture with you for the entire hour and a half, but I want to hear your story. I know my guests want to hear your story. That's why they come back every week. So take us back in time.
yeah.
How did your journey lead you to us talking on the Manufacturing Culture podcast? And were there any like major experiences that has shaped this path?
Yeah, for sure. So I started my first company when I was 18 in college. And
Awesome.
by the time I had graduated, I had a full book of business, and, I never actually went what I would consider into the real world. So I have always been a free spirit and an entrepreneur, and just took the flying leap out of the gate. My parents were not as sure, and they said, like, you just went to college for all these years. What are you doing? Can you get health insurance though? So
Right.
that was the one agreement that we had. And so I took care of that and never looked back. So I had that business for 15 years.
Wow.
And I just reached this point where I said, am I happy? And had a candid conversation with myself and said, you are not happy. And this is, you're
Mm.
putting yourself through this for the sake of saying that you've accomplished it. It was just a really transient organization, the people, the culture. We didn't hire. I mean, I'd never had those life experiences, so I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
And so I was sure that I wanted to just be a consultant, because the parts of the business that I loved and spent most of my time on were the marketing and the sales. And that's what I had gone to school for. And so I said, I'm just going to be a consultant. I want to help as many people as I can. And by the end of that year, I had a business coach, and he said, you're back to the same spot where you brought me in. Like, how did we get here in 12 months? And he's like, look, like, you're working nights, you're working weekends, you have way too many clients. Like, you either have to say no more clients, or you have to hire somebody. And I said, I do not want to hire people. That is what caused all of this drama, all of this heartache.
Mm.
And I am sure that that is why I was unhappy. And as time went on, I just reached a point where I said, I'll take baby steps.
Sure.
So we hired one person, and the rest is history. I just made it a pact that whatever we did moving forward, that the focus was always on happy. So anytime something created a ripple, we would take a hard reset and say, what is going on and how do we pivot to make sure that we don't lose focus on happy?
Awesome.
And that's really how and why we really are so invested in the culture and the people, in the value alignment. That culture assessment makes such a big difference.
Awesome. So what was that first company? What did you do with that first company?
We did fitness training. So we would go into people's homes, into like their private gyms. We'd go onto campuses and we'd run like these massive boot camps. We'd go into kids' schools and train the kids who didn't have programs and bring fun things on site for them. But the culture alignment of the people, we didn't screen in for culture. I didn't think that was a thing. It was really just based on skill of, can this person, do they have the accreditation? Are they in the same geography?
Sure.
And so that's how that went.
So how many employees does MarketVeep have now?
We have 25 and growing.
Dang, man. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Very cool humans for sure.
And now let's talk, because now that you talk about the fitness side, that makes the wellness, well-being mindset make a little bit more sense, right? So tell us about this First Friday opportunity that you provide your team.
Yeah. So we started this right, I want to say it was like around COVID. It's been years at this point. But I came across this article that overseas they had done this study, and it was looking at the 4-day work week. And it was saying how people, they were happier, they were healthier, they had better, quality of life. And that the study actually came back that the people were more productive exponentially than they would have been if they had been in the office. They'd crushed all their goals. And the employees, were just overall a more well-rounded human.
Yeah.
And so I read the article and I was like, at that time, we just, we're a service business. We can't shut down for a day of the week. Campaigns have to go out.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, what could we do? What options could we do to make it feel like that and get that same effect? And so what we did was we said, we're going to shut down for the first Friday of every month. And that's going to be dedicated to personal wellness. So I always make the joke that I originally used it as time to clean my house, but it has since evolved to much more fun stuff. But people use it for all different kinds of stuff, to go take long weekends, to go to concerts, to go see their family. It just has become a core thing that we will never take away. Yeah. And then it had evolved into Fridays, because Fridays in general are slower days, but we still wanted to have flexibility. So we added in half day Fridays. So we end at noon. We end by noon, but the last hour is a happy hour. Yeah. So it's a very short day.
So do you have a virtual happy hour?
Yep. We do really silly stuff.
That's awesome.
Very silly. We do like brackets based on what food,
Uh-huh.
or like songs or bands or superheroes. We've done Pictionary. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we did vision boards. So everybody worked on their own vision board and then talked through all their pictures. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. They're
I
really
love it.
creative.
So was there a moment before that 18 that you know, high school, middle school, elementary, or even younger, that you knew that you had that entrepreneurial mindset? Or is that
Yeah.
something that came out like post high school? You're like, I'm going to buck the status quo and go this direction.
No. So I was sharing a story with somebody the other day that they had talked about lemonade stands. And so I started out with like, yeah, I can do a lemonade stand. I was probably like 7. I vividly remember this moment. So we were doing lemonade stands, and I said, we were doing our driveway. So they were taking up the gravel in the driveway and it was going to get paved. And I said,
Yeah.
I want to sell the rocks. And they were like, okay, sure. So I started selling baggies of rocks at the end
Seriously.
of seriously. And people bought them. Like, I'm talking a lot of bags of rocks, and they would
Wow.
stop and stop and stop, and it worked for whatever reason. I couldn't have been older than like 7. And then at the end of that, when the driveway was finally paved and there were no more rocks to sell, I wanted to sell acorns. So I bagged up acorns because I was fearful that the squirrels wouldn't be able to survive the winter. And people bought acorns for a long time. So I think about God bless my parents for being supportive and like,
Yeah.
cheering me on, but they never crushed,
That's awesome.
that spirit. Yeah.
That's really cool. So you've always had this mindset. You've always known that this was what you were born to do, kind of.
Yeah. I think I just didn't know what it was, but I just loved that excitement of like an idea and bringing that ideation to life.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's dive back into MarketVeep because you have some serious awards and it's a really fast growing company. You've got 25 staff and growing. Let's go back to that start of MarketVeep and how your vision for the organization may have changed over time.
Mm.
Is it the same as it was when you started the organization, or has that changed?
I think it's definitely changed. I think, I talk about COVID a lot because I think that mindset of like you're physically with these people,
Yeah.
it's a different experience. I miss like when we were just at last year we did IMTS and FabTech, and that feeling of actually being able to like hug your teammate,
Yeah.
even though you've never met them in a year and a half, and to
Yeah.
like meet them for the first time. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I think that the way that we think about what we can do and how we can support each other, like we mail a lot more gifts and flowers and edible arrangements and cookies and
Sure.
um handwritten cards, all of those things, where when we were in a physical space, we did things like pumpkin painting and handwriting cards to, the elderly in the homes down the street, like things like that, where you had the capabilities to do. And so we've had to evolve that as kind of our business model has shifted, but we've really tried to remain focused on like, it's still a core component and tenet of like how we operate as an organization.
Yeah. Got it. How did you find? You brought up IMTS, and I want to go back to that, but I want to
Yeah.
get into kind of the root. How did you find manufacturing? What drew
Mm.
you to this industry as one to help with your programs, your
I love the
services?
people. The people
Ah,
are by far the kindest, most honest, hardworking. I just can't say enough nice things. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he asked a similar question, and he said, like, why do you guys specialize in this? And I said, well, the idea that is a industry for all of the different industries that we've ever worked with in our history, it's the only industry that I've ever seen be so collaborative and like
mm,
supportive, even to a competitor.
yeah,
Like the fact that they let their competitors come in and tour their facilities and see all of the inside workings and collaborate and share ideas, I think is so unbelievably incredible.
Yeah.
Amongst, I mean, I could go on forever on that whole topic. Met some of the nicest people. They're just warm. They're nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love your journey into it and what drew you to it. Talk to us about IMTS 24, because to me that was an IMTS where things were at the forefront that I hadn't seen before at IMTS. So from your perspective, what was IMTS like for you?
Yeah. So it was our first show. We went in 2 feet. So first time going,
Yeah.
first time exhibiting. And
Mm,
so we brought 5 people.
wow.
So it was definitely an experience. It was very long, which I had not planned. Thankfully, I had been to FabTech the year before and realized the importance of investing in a very, very good pair of sneakers. But I loved it. I think the energy was great. I think the creativity in the booths was incredible. Um, I think even just how they've marketed a lot of the areas, like the escalators going up and down, and just being really creative and super collaborative. I love seeing all the podcast booths and being able to see the behind the scenes was incredible, and
Yeah.
like meeting people. That's what I found really compelling.
Awesome. I love
How
that.
about you? What?
So I loved, uh, so I am a big fan of the humans of this industry. But I also love how humans and tech interact.
Mm,
And so looking forward, the next industrial revolution is going to be Industry 5.0, which is centered around how do machines and humans interact. And so the Oak Ridge National Lab convergent manufacturing system that they had in the main mezzanine there between the
on
two
the
halls.
left, right? When you walk
Yeah.
through. Real
Oh
good.
my God. That was the coolest thing that I had ever seen. This was the first IMTS that I worked. Everything else before that, the previous years that I have been working, but not exhibiting or part of the show. This was the first time I'd been part of the show. So I didn't get to see as much, but that convergent manufacturing from Oak Ridge Lab, that stood out to me and has inspired me to do a lot of digging into what Industry 5.0 is going to be, how we're going to have to adjust the way we lead
Mm,
as we start to realize that AI and automation aren't the, I hate the term, but silver bullet that we thought it was to solve the work, the skills gap and the issues that we see in the world of work and manufacturing. They are a tool, but they're not the solution, right?
yeah.
And so, go
It's
ahead.
not a full picture.
Exactly. And so, how we lead teams as we go through these digital transformations is going to have to evolve to be more adaptive and quick thinking, able to pivot, and hugely human centric as we move forward. And so, that was, for me, that was what IMTS was all about.
Yeah, it was an awesome exhibit. That's such a great takeaway.
Yeah,
I think
thank
it's
you.
a great way of thinking about it too, like that it has to really be iterative and adaptive, and it's not just gonna, you know, fix everything. It's the same thing in marketing. How I feel about AI,
Absolutely.
same way.
Yeah. We're going, it's a powerful tool, right? And I interviewed a guest a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I asked if AI was going to take jobs on his side of the business, and he's on, software side of things, and he said no. He said AI is just like a tool, like when computers first came out or when
Mm-hmm.
CNCs first came out. Everybody thought that computers were going to take jobs. Everybody thought that CNC machines were going to take jobs. It wasn't the case. You still have humans. You may not be a manual machinist anymore. You may not be a, you know, writing copy by hand or on a typewriter, but
Right, a typewriter. It's funny to think of now, right? It's the same thing. 10 years from now, we're going to be like, remember when we were scared of the robots taking over the world?
absolutely. So I think that, we just have to think about AI automation as tools. And if we can get past that, then we can really start to do some amazing things in opening up capacity. Once the convergent manufacturing systems start taking hold in the industry, and we can have one human that operates an entire convergent cell, where the machining, the programming, the welding, the deburring, the quality is all handled in one cell.
Mm.
We're really going to be able to change the dynamic. But that takes a very special leader to lead a human that it has the capability to do those things, because that's not going to be your machinist. We're going to have to upskill. So these are going to be leaders who have to uh, develop and really buy into learning pathways and upskilling, and tying that upskilling back to performance and how performance reviews have done. It's going to create a completely different leadership ecosystem, and it'll be fun to see that evolution of leadership really move forward.
That's such a great point. Love it.
Thank you. But let's talk more about you. I just spent way too long talking. I don't like talking on my own podcast. I like listening to
I ask a lot of questions.
And that's great. Jennelle, funny, I just said I don't like talking. I was on Chris Lukey's Manufacturing Happy Hour, and I felt like I steamrolled him, because I felt like I asked him more questions than he was able to ask me. And at the end, I apologized, and he said, "No, that's great. I had to do less thinking. So ask all the questions you want." Yeah.
I love it. I feel like it's a very human, regular conversation that we would have over a cup of coffee and be like, oh my gosh, this cool thing.
Absolutely. And that's the one requirement I have for somebody being on here, is I have to want to, by the time our pre-interview call is done, I have to want to have a cup of coffee or a beer or a meal with you. And so that's why you're here, because I'd love to sit down with you. I'm bummed we didn't get to do that at IMTS, but we'll meet up sometime this year.
FabTech this year.
FabTech, yes. FabTech's going to be great. So let's go to you. You also do have a podcast.
Yes.
You're a contributor to Entrepreneurial.com. You're viewed as a leader in pretty much all the spaces that you walk into. How do you balance all those different roles and the things that you do?
Flattering. We go with that. It's a lot of pressure. I would say, I just think of it as, how can I help this person? So I'm on the PMA board for the New England district, and I think it's very hard to be around other, just another good human, and they're like, how do I do X? Yeah. And to not be like, oh my God, we could do this and then this, and here's this super exciting thing, and I get all geeked out, and then before you know it, here we are. We're on a podcast. But I want to make people happy, and I want people to be excited, and I just want to help as many people as I can possibly get in front of, because why else are we all here, right? Let's help somebody else move forward.
Absolutely. And I was taught very young that there are multiple ways that you can contribute, right? Some people can contribute financially, some people can contribute time. Very rarely can you do both, right? Mm-hmm. And so for you to be able to take that time to contribute to the growth and prosperity of others is commendable.
Thank you. My team helps. It's not all me. They are good humans, and they're like, they never say no. They're like, yes, we'll find a way. We'll do it. We'll figure it out. And so they are an awesome support system and just excellent cheerleaders. So
I love that. I love that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to meet more of them now.
Yes.
Um, Talk to us about the podcast, Finding Business
Yeah.
Happy. What's it about, and what? Let's start with what's it about.
Yeah. So the idea is that how do people live their best life inside and outside of work? And what does happiness really look like? So it's everything from, random life situations in business that is you're starting up that can happen after you've been an established business, employees,
Mm,
clients, legal, all of these kind of things that go about, but how, if we knew ahead of time how to prevent them or be better about the friction that they cause, along with just really interesting organizations. So whether that's tech platforms that help solve and to make lives easier, or I
cool.
had an awesome organization where they have families that literally are set up across the world. It's called Boundless Life. So cool. They live someplace else for like months, like they call it a semester, or like they'll do like a summer abroad. And the kids, so the parents can go and they have like a co-op and work, and the kids go to school. It was like I
That's
can't
awesome.
even, so very cool. But you get to meet really inspiring people and just a different way of thinking about what your happiest best life is.
I love that. I just wrote down the name
Yeah.
Boundless Life. I have to look
I'm
that
just,
up afterwards.
I'm like, which location should we do first?
Yeah,
So
right.
my husband was like, where are we going? So
What
we're
inspired
working
you
on
to
it.
start the show?
I just wanted to spread happiness. Like I wanted other people to know that it's okay to be not have everything figured out all the way through, and that
Yeah.
there's lots of other people. Like happiness is defined in so many different ways, whether that's they fell in love with a certain hobby, or I met somebody else and they took their mom across the country on a road trip and then went down to Mexico, like just really a different, because I think when I think about happiness, it's like, well, like, am I retired and can I travel as much as I want?
Oh,
But like, there's these micro moments that happen in people's lives where you can have an incredible, vibrant life. But I don't think it's not as forward and prominent that you hear about of these
yeah.
different kinds of things.
I love that. I love that a lot. So what? I mean, you've limitless or boundless life.
Boundless
Uh,
life.
so you've had some great lessons, I guess, that you've learned from this. What has been one of the biggest takeaways that you've learned from your guests while podcasting?
Ooh. They all are so interesting. Like, it's just a human. I think the Boundless Life one for me is just a big one, because I think when you think about traveling with kids,
Mm,
even for us, like, let's say, I mean, she literally takes her family like to Bali and they live there for months during the school year. So like they travel all over.
I love that.
And then I had another guest who had actually been through the experience from Bright Tax. And so the both of them were talking about the experience from both like a planning perspective and then what it's actually like to be a
Wow.
traveler. And so she had been and taken her kids, and they did
Wow.
Portugal and Greece. And I think that was a really interesting learning, just like thinking about it from a kid's perspective, like what that would do for a kid to open up their eyes to different life experiences, different people, different cultures, um, not having a set plan and like being okay going and figuring things out,
Yeah.
I think is really exciting.
Yeah. Last year, we were fortunate enough to be able to take our kids, who are 14 and 10, to Italy. And it was their first exposure. We've taken them to Mexico before, but first exposure to European cultures and outside of their bubble at such like interesting development
Yeah.
ages,
It's
right?
good ages to go.
Yeah. And they don't have dino nuggets in Italy, guys. Mac and cheese isn't on every menu, type of a thing. And we did Florence, we did Verona, and we did Venice. So three
Oh, good
very
choices.
unique and different places to take them, and getting them outside of their bubble was something that my wife and I now talk about. How do we do this more often? We've got to get them outside of this bubble and get them that experience of what life can be like outside of the US, because you when you spend so much time in the US, you start to take for granted uh
Lucky.
how lucky and how your life isn't the only way to live that life, right?
Mm-hmm.
When eh, yeah, watching just people milling around in Verona, and by the way, out of the three cities, us four decided that Verona was our favorite. It's sleepier than Florence or Venice,
Mm-hmm.
but just as historic, and we found the food there phenomenal. So anyway, my own
I
personal
liked
plug for
Verona
Verona.
too.
Yeah, I loved it.
All three great choice. Florence was by far, it's like my happy place. I
Yeah.
actually, ironically, just met with somebody in their background this morning. I was like, Ponte Vecchio. Was this your own picture? Like, where were you on the strip here? But I love it there,
Yeah.
and I think that's incredible. Good for you.
Yeah, and so yeah, I'm definitely gonna look up Boundless Life. We need to get them out of the country more often.
I'll
Um,
connect you with her. She's very cool. Very
please
cool
do.
human.
I'd love that. Tell us about MarketVeep. I haven't even asked you this question yet.
Yeah.
What is MarketVeep, and what do you do for the manufacturing customers you serve?
Yeah. So we function as what traditionally we would call like a full service agency. So everything from website, content generation, trade show support, social media, we're a Google partner, paid ads,
Got
LinkedIn
it.
ads, webinars, all of that good stuff. The big difference is that everything we do is actually tracked to ROI. So we use HubSpot as our platform of choice, and then everything is interconnected so that we have clear visibility into closed loop reporting for
Wow.
revenue. Because we just, 7 years ago, we had half of our clients not on HubSpot and half were. And the people that had everything connected, we could make way faster decisions. We could get really granular and say, this campaign brought in this amount of revenue. And these are, the terms. And this is, where we should spend more money. And this is where we should cut it. And trying to log into 20 different platforms to try to get the same data was miserable as, a
Yeah.
marketer trying to connect the dots and say, well, like the lead came in, but like what channel did they come through? And what was their last name again? Let me go back and look at the geography in Google Analytics and see if I can cross compare.
Right.
So that's what we do. But we support them in terms of it. When it boils down, it's all about better leads. So not just quality of leads, but really looking at, who are they, where are they, and how do we get more of them?
We talked a little bit about IMTS and like the physical technology.
Yeah.
What trends do you see on the marketing and branding side that are coming towards the manufacturing industry that will affect that, customer engagement and branding efforts that they have?
Yeah. I think I had, a very I'll call it interesting, I'll remain positive, conversation with somebody at IMTS. Came over to the booth and he said, so what do you do? And I said, we do marketing. He said, I don't need that. And I said, oh, okay. Well, that's nice to meet you too. But the interesting thing was he had 70 salespeople. There was no visibility into their pipeline at all. And
Wow.
he couldn't forecast, for this organization. And so I think a lot of the trends, and oddly enough, the same day we had somebody come through who had a larger sales team, but was doing those things. And I think the open-mindedness and the conversation of here's where we're stuck, but here's the things that I'm thinking about or want to try or that I've seen my competitor do. And so I think historically there has been less open-mindedness and kind of just this staying in kind of the space where we're in. And I love when people tell me that we don't need leads, we get referrals, because that's not a repeatable sales pipeline to predict
Right.
revenue. So, that's kind of, I think, the biggest thing. It was exciting to see and talk to more and more people who want to use technology, want to get in the weeds, want to do really cool stuff. I think another one was podcasting has come a long way, was 5 years ago, didn't see that as much. And then the other one I'd say is personal branding. So
Okay.
people really leaning into not just posting stuff for the sake of posting stuff, but like I watched a video this morning and an organization had posted a video of their machine and he had a picture of, when his dad installed it and had removed the roof. And, I said, they called it Rex. And so it's more about like the story behind the machine and the people and how they got there, which is exciting because it makes it more human and a connection to somebody.
Got it. Have you ever doubted that you're on the right path?
1000%. 1000%. I don't even need to pause to think about it.
That was so automatic.
Yeah, every day. I'm like, is this still the right thing? Are we moving in the right direction? I think it's a constant assessment of how do you stay happy? I don't think happy is like a place that you arrive at and then it just stays stagnant. I think you change as a human and different phases of life, different phases when you have kids, all of these different things impact what happiness looks like. And so all of that influences what your day-to-day and your job is.
Awesome. I had to take, it's not a direct quote, but ultimately it said happiness isn't a destination. Right.
Yeah.
And I love that mindset. That might actually be the title of this episode, is happiness isn't a destination, because it truly is a journey. And I love that you're going on that journey. And so as you go through that journey of happiness, how do you deal with those doubts? How do you dispel those doubts and move forward with that positive mindset to continue doing what you do so well?
Yeah. I think there's two things. I think the first one is who you surround yourself with.
Mm.
So I think like the support system and creating a space of like, it's okay to fail or say this isn't okay, I think opens up a lot of other conversations where you have the ability to shift to change. Because I think I've met organizations and there's not the ability to have those conversations. And you're like, oh, you're so close. Like, just say it,
Right
just get it
there.
out. Like,
Right there.
almost. But you have to have a lot of trust, right? In the
Yeah.
people and like the vulnerability component. So being able to be really vulnerable. And then I'd say build a community of good around you.
Mm.
So people, whether, like you, right? Like you're same space, like-minded, going through similar life experiences, like all of these pieces, use your social channels and look for like-minded people, givers who are really expressing similar things. And you'll see that you're not alone. You're not, it reaffirms I read 2 to 3 books a week. And that's, people say like, why do you read so much? And that's, I think, probably the biggest driver of like, I just want reaffirmation that it's not lonely, right? Like there's somebody else that survived this and they figured it out, and that's okay. And that's how you get there.
That validation means something every time. Yeah. I love that. What are you reading right now?
Oh gosh. I just finished Influencer.
Okay.
Which was very good. Brittany Hennessy.
Yeah, that's on my bookshelf right there.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but it's on the list. I have a stack of books that I have on deck. So I've got that one. I'm looking forward to that one.
And then I like her human approach in her writing. She's very relatable.
Yeah.
And I like Brendan Kane. So I've powered through a bunch of his, and it's really about like thinking about perspective and positioning and people, and just kind of the social space. Cause I think social changes so much. And, I think about Instagram versus LinkedIn, and people are like, well, like our personas are only on this one platform. And you're like, they're still a human. They might have 3 or 4 platforms. They just use them very differently. So
I know I do. Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn are 3 very different platforms in how I use them. Right.
Yeah.
Facebook is a place where I allow some of the work life into get glimpses of my personal life. but my Instagram is locked down. Like I have very few industry friends that I'm connected with on Instagram.
Interesting.
Because for me, that's where I put my kids. That's where I put
Hmm.
and it's a weird world, and don't love having my young kids, and now they're not as young as they once were. I mean, my daughter actually has her own social profile, so I can probably start showing her a little bit more, but they don't have these public personas yet, right?
Yeah.
And until they make that decision, I don't want to make it for them and make them public. If they choose to, if my son chooses to go the social media route, cool, then I can start relaxing things. But that's where all of my familial stuff goes. LinkedIn is where I, exist in this space, and pour over into Facebook. So I get your
And
point exactly.
I 100% agree with you. That's how I feel about my child in social too, even in podcasting. Like he'll come, like we were joking about him, removing the nodules on my
Right.
microphone. Like can't figure out how to turn the thing on when it worked yesterday. So, and I love him dearly, but I don't post pictures. I might share a funny story here or there, but I agree with you. For me, everybody's different. I pass no
Absolutely.
judgment to
Yeah.
those who
Done.
want to, but I just think until he is old enough to make that choice for himself,
Yeah.
I just tell him, yeah, we can record the podcast and it goes in Riverside, and maybe one day he'll want to look back and laugh and see, what that was like, and
Yep.
be able to still have that experience and that excitement.
Yep. Absolutely. I love that. I had what has been the toughest leadership lesson you've learned in your journey?
Just one.
I know. You
So many.
can give us multiple if you've got multiple right off the top of your head.
No, I think the hardest one is still the people, right? So the best and I don't want to say the worst, the hardest. The best
Yeah.
and the hardest things are always the people, because we are in a service business, and aligning, it is so hard, I think, when you find you've done all you've mapped everything, and you've gone through all the interviews, gone through the team interviews, you've gone through all the training. They're so excited, and you start moving through, and you're like, the value alignment is, we have missed something in this. And I think that is the hardest decision. Especially when they really want to be here, and you're just like, we're not where we need to be.
Yeah.
By far the hardest conversations, hardest decisions, out of all of the years.
Yeah, I get that. Has there been a hire that you've had at MarketVeep that has completely changed the trajectory of the organization?
Several. So our director of ops, she came in as a social media applicant 6 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so we have become obviously very good friends. And, over the years, we've lived life, and we've, done things where we've traveled. And so that then evolved into 3 years ago, actually almost like a couple weeks ago, it was 3 years. We decided to bring my husband into the business. And
Cool.
at the same time, we decided her wife should also come into the business.
Wow.
And so
all right.
we were like, let's go all in and blow this up. Let's see what happens. Let's go. So her wife is a project manager. She's the director of ops. And my husband is the CFO.
Wow.
And so we were like, this is either going to blow up, or this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened. And we have a blast every day, and just like good humans, like-minded. So those hires have 1000% it's influenced my happy, for sure.
I love that. I love that a lot. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can phrase this question, and not have it sound super simplistic. But without making it super simplistic, culture and branding go hand in hand. Talk to us about your experience making those connections for manufacturers, especially in this industry that culture isn't people's favorite word. Let's be honest,
No.
right? So how do you make that connection for your clients?
Yeah. I think the hardest part is if we can get over the openness, which we've learned to actually, we use Score app to actually screen in part of the culture. So the
Got it.
same culture tactics that we think about for employees, we also think about, are they a value culture alignment as a client? Because we can't actually do the stuff if they're not open to trying the stuff.
Absolutely.
So, I think for them, the biggest one is, I think, the acceptance of social media and the technology piece, because they've just been able to grow.
Yeah.
Where a lot of industries, they can't grow. They have to use ads and they have to do all these other channels. But if we can get them over, like, there's other ways that can help make your life easier.
Yeah.
1000% branding wise. And then helping them just be a little bit more vulnerable, because it's so foreign in terms of, like, I don't have a social profile at all. Now you want to share pictures of my shop or of my employees or these stories that are, like, personal. And there's a way to do it. We don't just say, like, let's jump in the deep end without a life preserver. We have to, like, kind of take baby steps and, like, let's get the profile set up. Let's get new imagery. Let's, talk about, like, what made you fall in love with manufacturing, like those types of things. Baby steps.
Got it. Love it. MarketVeep, hugely successful. We talked about the accolades. Again, phenomenal. Congratulations.
Thank
Super
you.
jealous. But at the same time, very, like, I admire you for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
And what I'd like to know is, what is the legacy that Jennelle wants to leave as you, because every generation wants to leave legacy, right? And as we move through our careers, it stops making current impact as our goal to moving into making legacy impact, right? So what's the legacy that Jennelle wants to leave in the world, on the industry?
I love that. Ironically, at IMTS, the backdrop was helping manufacturers build a legacy. No joke.
Kidding.
No joke.
All right, folks, this was not planned. I did not know that. I didn't even see Jennelle at IMTS or visit her booth, at least. Wow.
I'm going to send you the picture so there's proof. But I think more than that, I think it is to live truly your best, happiest life, whatever that may be for you. So if that is, producing parts, if that's spending more time with family, if it's traveling across the world, I think not compartmentalizing and saying, well, like, I'm a manufacturer and, like, I can't work remote. Think outside the box of, okay, but I can take time at summer to go travel with my family, or I can, change the hours that I work, or it can be so many different things, but not limiting yourself to whatever your happiest life is going to be.
I love it. What's next for MarketVeep? What's the trajectory? Any big projects you're working on? I mean, you're growing as a team, but like, you seem to be very innovative, and your team seems to be very innovative, and so you're bringing in components that not a lot of your traditional agencies tend to look at, right? Cultural fit, things of that nature. So what's next for the organization?
I think for us, we've worked with so many different kinds of businesses, people. I think there's a missing piece for community. And so it's one of the things I love about the associations is seeing kind of this ability to build fun. And so I want to really explore, how do we do more of that, but at scale? Like, how do we help people get there faster? Because I think in manufacturing especially, right, there's different levels of where people are in their journey of this kind of open-mindedness. Maybe it's that they need more assets and we have a product that helps them get there faster, but they're like a do-it-yourselfer, and it will help move their needle.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's that we need to have events where we actually do something fun, not necessarily talk about marketing, but like go skiing and just have an open event and do these things that are way more creative. Because I find some of my best ideas that I come up with or that make me happiest, or I might be on a walk or something else.
Absolutely.
So getting people out together, I think, would probably be more community driven.
Awesome. I love your focus that you have on just the humans. A lot of people in our industry, we push, getting people into trade schools, right? They want that to be the contribution that the next generation brings to our industry, is getting into these skilled trades positions, which we definitely need. But those aren't the only jobs within manufacturing. We're starting to talk more about going to universities and bringing people who maybe in marketing programs, maybe in other types of programs, and bringing them into the manufacturing ecosystem, the manufacturing workplace ecosystem. What advice would you give to a young person going into university, coming out of university in a marketing field that is unsure what industry they want to approach, right? How would you talk to them about joining the manufacturing industry?
I think find your people would probably be the first thing. Like find community. And like we were talking about in the beginning, I just think it is the most inclusive, caring group of people. Like, for example, I joined the board of PMA. The very first meeting that I had ever met any of the board, somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, I don't know how much of, in the stamping, do you want to come on some tours with me? I'll take you to all the facilities." And I just was like, in what other world would something like it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so I think when you find your people, the kindness and just such a giving mindset, join the associations, all of those core things, it just makes life so much better.
I love it. I love it. Jennelle, my last question, we talked about a lot, but what haven't I asked you that you want to share with the audience?
I think don't give up on finding whatever your happy is. I think, make a list and really think about it, because life is just too short to go through the motions. And I think there's a lot of time that people waste trying to have the perfect plan instead of moving just towards something that's slightly different than what you're currently doing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. I've
Thank
really
you so
enjoyed
much.
this. This has
Me
been
too.
great. Folks, from Jennelle dropping multiple bombshells, but my favorite so far today was that happiness isn't a destination. And I love Jennelle's focus on happiness and humans. And I love it because that's what makes this industry so special to so many of us, is the humans that are here. It's the people. You walk through trade shows, you walk through conferences, and it's a bunch of like-minded individuals. And going to conferences and seeing the diversity that truly makes up this industry is so special. So Jennelle, thank you for bringing that to the forefront of our mind. You've also brought, you've made me realize that success isn't about growth necessarily. I mean, that's what 100%. Makes our businesses, successful, but it's about the humans and how we make them successful that then brings success and growth to our organizations. So thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
You're an absolute rock star. I can't wait to hang out with you some point in the future. And thank you, listeners out there. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. if you've loved this episode as much as I have, please take a minute to share it with a friend, a colleague, your grandma, anyone who needs to hear these stories or Jennelle's story. And while you're at it, please, please, please rate and review the show. Every time you rate and review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening, or on YouTube if you're watching, it helps us reach more listeners, and that because it rockets us up the charts. And so every time you rate and review, it moves us up higher, so more people find us. And when more people find us, then I can bring you more conversations like this. I don't know how the algorithm works. I just know that it's there. And don't forget to check out our website, themfgconnector.com, for episodes, resources, other ways that we can connect. And of course, you can find us on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, to stay up to date and see some of the shows that we'll be at in 2025. Again, if you're looking to listen to more great content, make sure you check out our other podcast, Work But Make It Human. It's a very short show, 10 minutes long, but we dive into one concept on leadership and workplace culture, and we give you a resource on our website that you can download for free. Our other show is the Manufacturing Connector over on YouTube, where we really highlight software companies and service providers in manufacturing that makes the humans' lives easier in this industry. So that's it for today. Keep leading, keep learning, and I'll see you next time on the Manufacturing Culture Podcast.